Welcome back to the Sandbox Tycoon series. In this video, I'll be showing you exactly how to set up a plot system. Now, this system is not going to be one where you choose exactly which plot you want. Instead, we're going to be doing a system where the server hands out plots automatically. I may do a mini series that kind of adds on to this one after the fact, that adds in those features that people request and they didn't make it into the main series, but I'm not going to promise anything. But anyway, we will get into the video. Actually, before that, I'm just going to promote my Discord server. And yeah, so pretty much just my Discord server is the best way to get in contact with me and the rest of the people that watch the videos, so subscribers or the community, I guess. And essentially, there's the dev support channel, so you can submit support on different, or you can ask for help essentially. There's the projects channel where you can submit your projects that you've been working on. There's a whole ton of stuff. I'll show you a screenshot of all the different things, or a video or whatever, showing all the different things. You'll have to come and join the server to see what all of them are, but yeah. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you in the server, and let's just move into the video. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a folder in server script service. Now, I actually forgot to do this in the first video, so we're doing it here. But anyway, we're going to create a folder, and we're going to call this server modules. And the reason for that is we're going to put a module script in here. You may be asking, why don't we just put it in modules? Well, so we're going to call this plot manager, okay? And in here, we're also going to call this plot manager. We can just go ahead and duplicate that. And basically what this module is going to do is we're going to create a server script. Actually, here, we're going to call this plot manager or plot handler. So plot handler, basically just a different name of saying plot manager. But the module is essentially going to assign a plot. Now, the module is going to hold the functions to do that. We're also going to have another function to return the plot to the server. Now, the reason why we're putting it in server modules and not modules is we don't want the client having access to setting players' plots. Like, that wouldn't make any sense. Exploiters will go crazy with that one. They would set people's plots to different things or whatever. I don't know. They would just call it on different things, and they would basically, go crazy. So we don't want that. We're doing it in server modules so that the client cannot physically do anything. So let's just go ahead and go into plot manager and create a couple of functions. So the first function is going to be for assigning the plot. So we're going to say plot manager dot, and then we're going to do assign plot. This is going to take in two parameters. The first one is going to be the location, and the second one is going to be the player that we are trying to assign the plot to. Now, in this function, really all we're going to do is we're going to make a for loop, which is going to be for IV in pairs, and we're going to loop around LOC get children. We're going to say do, and we are actually going to, so I guess this is it actually. Then what we can say is we can check if, and actually I'm going to change V to PLT just for the sake of making this more readable. So if PLT dot, and basically what we're going to be checking is if this owner value is empty. So if it is, we're going to set the plot to that player. So we're going to say if plot.owner.value is equal to an empty string, then we're going to return, or we're going to set plt dot owner dot value to plr dot name. So you may be wondering, why are we not just saying if plt is equal to nil? Well, string values actually don't, for some reason, at least in my experiences, they don't. Empty values are equal to an empty string and not nil. For some reason, I don't know why this is. If you know, comment down below and help people out. But if you don't, just know that this value is an empty string and not nil. I don't know why. It makes no sense, but yeah, it is. That's the way it is. And yeah, so you can't check if it's equal to nil. You have to check if it's an empty string for this to work. So then, of course, we also have to break out of this loop. So we're just going to call break, or write out the break statement, which basically is just going to break out of the loop, because we don't want to be setting multiple plots to our player. It's kind of the thing we're trying to avoid, putting this in server modules. So the second function is going to be, again, we're going to say plot manager dot, and this is going to be return plot, okay? Again, this is going to take in two parameters. The actually, no, we're just going to give the, oh, never mind, we are actually going to need that one. So we're the same amount of parameters as the other one. So then we can also put a for I plt in pairs loop. We can loop around the children. And of course I put an extra parenthesis that wasn't needed. Okay, so here, instead of checking if the value is equal to this empty string, we are actually going to be checking if plt.owner.value is equal to plr.name. And if it is, we're going to return plt, and then we don't have to write out break since return already stops the code from running. So the reason why we're doing this function is this is going to be, if the client requests the plot, then we can easily just hand it out to them, because the client is going to need to know the plot that they have. So yeah, this is just going to be how we're going to do it. Okay, so now in plot handler, we're going to need a couple of different things. So first off, I'm just going to get the player service, which is going to be equal to game get service, and then players, if I could type. Then we are going to get the module, so we can say local plot manager equals require, and then we can give it, not a string, script.parent.server modules dot plot manager. And that's essentially going to give us the plot manager. Is going to return the functions, allow us to use them. As you can see, if we type plot manager dot, it's going to give us a list of the functions. So that's that. So now we can say when someone joins the game, so player added, then we can connect to, we're going to call this function, we're actually going to declare a function up here. So local function. You may be wondering, if you're new to scripting and all, you should know this, but if you are just watching this, the reason why we didn't declare local is because this is going in here, and we don't want everything to be local. So we define local function, and I'm going to call this function, I don't know, let's see. What would be a good name? So what are we trying to do? When the player joins, we're going to, what? Assign the plot. So we're going to again call this assign plot. And we're going to give this PLR, and then we can assign to, or connect to assign plot. So when the player joins the game, we're going to invoke this function. Invoke just means call the function. So all we're going to do is call on the plot manager assign plot, and we just give it the player that just joined the game. That's all there is to it. Now we're also going to be making a function, so we're local function, and we're going to call it request plot. We're again going to pass the player. Now this is going to be needing a remote function, so we're going to use a remote function here. We're going to duplicate request placement, and we're going to call this, instead of request placement, we're going to call this request plot. So we're actually going to go and get that up here. So local remote RF is going to be equal to, we're actually just going to get the replicated storage service. So local replicated, replicated storage equals game get service replicated storage. So then we can say that we can just give it the path. So we can say replicated storage dot, and then we can say signals dot remotes dot functions dot request plot, and that's all there is to it. Then we can fire that when it's called. So down here, we're gonna put it right above here. Remote rf dot on server invoke. So on server invoke, basically, on server invoke is essentially when we call or we send information to the server, and then we have to give it a function. So we can say on server invoke. This is basically when the remote function is fired or invoked. We can just set that to request plot, and we get rid of that. So pretty simple syntax. All it's saying is instead of connecting to the function, we just pass in this function here. We don't give it parameters unless, well, no, we don't give it parameters here. We don't, or open and closing parentheses is what I meant. So what we can do is we can essentially just return, or first off, we need to check. You know what? Actually, no, we don't need to do anything. We can simply just return plot manager, if I can type here, dot return plot. Of course, we will have to give the location. I actually forgot about that up here. So the location in this case is just going to be workspace dot plots. Yep, or lowercase. So again, we're going to need the workspace dot plots, and then we give it the player. So that's that. Okay, so now everything should line up. If we call return plot, we get the location, it loops through. If the owner is equal to the name, then we return. So now we have two functions. How do we use them? Well, let's go down into, let's say, client placement. And instead of in here, instead of function rf, we are going to just duplicate that line. We're going to call this get plot rf. Actually, you know, I'm just going to call it get plot. And instead of request placement, we can just replace that with plot. So that's just going to get this thing. So we can actually just create a variable to fire and get the plot. So instead of workspace dot plots dot plot one, we can set it to get plot, and then we can say invoke server. Yep, server. So now this is going to fire, and whatever it returns, whatever this function returns, we're gonna set that to the plot variable. So let's see if it works. All right, so let's see what plot we were given. So obviously plot 1, let's just make sure we didn't get plot 2, 3, or 4. I'll click on plot 1, and as you can see, it worked. We have the placement system working. It puts it into the correct plot. And yeah, this is pretty much it. So you may be saying to yourself, well, we didn't teleport to the plot. So that's actually quite simple. Now, we are actually going to do it a little bit of a, whatever you call it. We're going to be doing it a little bit of a interesting way. So instead of actually doing the math and calculating, okay, if the plot is rotated this way, then just move it to here or something, we're just going to create a part that we're going to teleport to. So I'm going to create 4 parts here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just going to select them all so I can give them properties the same. I'm just going to make these anchored. We're going to turn can collide off, so there's absolutely no way that they can figure out that they're here. We're going to set the transparency to 0.5, and then basically we just have to put them in the place that we want. So we can bring this right here. We can bring this one right here. By the way, if you don't know how to teleport to parts like this, you just press F on the keyboard. So it's really actually quite useful. I'm just going to put this one right here, and that looks good. So now we can just call these, wonder, is there a way to, no. I'm just going to call each one of these telly. So just like that. Same thing with this one, that one, that one. So now if we open up here, we can just say that, okay, this one goes in plot 1. This one, plot 2. This one is plot 3. And then this one's obviously plot 4. So we're going to put a script in starter character scripts, or maybe starter player scripts. I don't remember which one. I think starter character scripts is what we're going to use, because that's whenever the character loads. So that actually is good. So we can say that local character, since this is going to load in the character, is just equal to script.parent, because that's going to be what it is. And if we want to test that out, we could just print it out. I'm not going to do that. I know this is going to work, but yeah. So how do we get the, well, plot? Well, we're actually going to go in here and we're just going to copy, what do we need? We need basically this. So we're going to paste it in. We're going to get rid of, you know what, never mind, we don't need that. Oh, right, and we're also going to need this right here. Put services at the top. And okay, so now we have everything that we need, except we don't need this one right here. So we're gonna, yeah, what we're gonna do is we're going to say that, yeah, we're gonna request a plot. So we're gonna say that local plot equals get plot, and then invoke server. And then below that, we can say character set primary part. Whoops. Oh yeah. Set primary part C frame. We give it a new C frame. We can give it plot.x or whoops plot.telly.cframe.x plot.telly.cframe.y, and actually on the y I'm actually going to add 10 studs. Plot.telly.cframe. Here we go. So now we have all of our axes. Now what do? We have to say cframe.new, of course. So this should actually be it. If we hit play, hopefully we'll teleport to the correct plot. As you can see, we did. So that is essentially all we have to do. Very simple. That's it. So I'm just going to call this teleport script, or teleport char. I'm going to call it teleport char. And then finally, I'm just going to click on all of these teleport bricks and make them fully invisible, so we don't know that we're teleporting onto them and it doesn't look weird like when I just tested it. So anyway, hopefully this did help you. I'm going to go over the code one more time just to make sure that it is, you know, making sense. So first of all, we make a plot, or a module. It's going to contain two functions. The first one is going to assign the plot, so that's, we loop through the location provided. Then we check if the owner is equal to an empty string. Remember, we have to say empty string and not a null value. So yeah, and if it is, if this returns true, then we are going to set that to the player. The player's name, not the player itself. We're not using object values like I did in the last series. And then of course we just go ahead and break, and these ends do the rest. They, yeah, end the function. So anyway, in the second function, this is going to handle returning the plot. So it's essentially the exact same thing as this. Instead, well, it's slightly different. The changed bit is essentially right here. This is the big point. So plt.owner.value. So if plt.owner.value is equal to the player.name, or the player name, then we're just going to go ahead and return a plot. And obviously in plot handler, we are just going to create a couple of functions to handle those. We may, like, I created functions so that if we wanted to add in something, we don't have to do it 100 times. I guess we would be creating functions either way if I did connect to a function, but this just makes it easier. I like to create functions that actually have names. Anyway, this just returns the plot when the client requests it, and this assigns the plot when the player joins the game. And of course, in here we get the plot from here, as well as in teleport char, and I'm pretty sure you probably will know what this is. So anyway, that's that. I'll see you in the next video. Let me just test it one more time, just to prove that it works. And here we go. That's all there is. So anyway, hopefully this helped, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.